What is Wikinews? What is Wikinews? Wikinews is a project. It's a project from the Wikimedia Foundation, okay? Everyone is invited to write it. Everyone can cover large or small events from elsewhere. Doesn't matter what we want to say to the world. For example, the death of Michael Jackson is a huge event. But a kid from Pichilemu, from Chile, write a news from his town. His town has 100 of people, and he write news about his town. Wikinews, as project of Wikimedia Foundation, is based on the key principles of Wikimedia projects. So it's neutral, it's free, and has an open decision-making process. So what's mean? I cannot write the news in my point of view, but you cannot write your news in your point of view. So how can we write the news? We can write the news in our point of view, no mine. If I write my point of view, I say, well, what's happened with the other people? Yeah? Can you catch the idea? So Wikinews is this, only news. Okay? So, as I said, Wikinews is a project of the Wikimedia Foundation that seeks to write news from the free sources. But Wikipedia is a project for the Wikimedia Foundation, that seeks to write the world knowledge in an online repository. So, that's mean Wikipedia try to cover all topics of the human knowledge, right? Past, present, future, TV shows, everything that the project covered. But Wikinews only news, current events. So, Wikinews born in 2004? 204 in English, and there are now over 13 languages. But Wikipedia born in 201 in English, and there are now over
260 languages.
Okay, thanks. Wikinews write news stories from a neutral point of view and maintain the freedom of the independence of source and editorial policy. That means, oh, sorry, my idea, it's here, sorry. Wikipedia write encyclopedic articles from a neutral point of view and well referenced. So, if I say in Wikipedia, some guy is dead, I cannot write that if I don't have a reference of that. Really? In Wikinews, we can write a news if we want, if we have a font or a source of this event. For example, if I say Chile wants 3-0 goals to Mexico, I have the source that confirms this. Okay? This source come from newspapers, tweets, from many sources. And Wikinews describe current events, and Wikipedia describe consequences of the past and current events.
Yeah, but Wikinews is a project have a potential because it differs substantially from the essence Wikipedia to create a posterity document with defined time limits. This is the substantial difference. Wikipedia can write for the past events and in a big perspective of the facts, and Wikinews only treat in indefinite time limits, but are enriched by the values that have made Wikipedia grow substantially. It's neutrality, verifiability, and wiki collaboration. Which concludes after closing the news to be filed. This is the most important thing. Past 2 weeks, the news is closed to be filed, and only administrators who have the values of the project or with trust of all the community close and can override the filed news. So we add with Wikinews, we add to human knowledge the report of circumstantial facts under a citizen perspective, and secondly, neutral. We detail the human processes, adding textual statements, photos, and timelines. In the case of Spanish Wikinews, the challenge is to inform to an audience from different cultural backgrounds on international events in a neutral languages that allow the least possible doubt in a pleasant style. So we inform to Argentinian people, we inform to Chilean people, or to Spanish or Mexican or other countries of America or Spanish spoken. Well, currently Wikinews seeks opening in a current environment in which charge for access to information is the trend. Currently, the world news has turned slowly to a digital media, newspaper sales dwindling worldwide, which has caused companies see online journalism as a way to capitalize on the news by charging for access to the news. The strategies online, the websites allow you to browse through the news and display ads on certain parts of the site. This is two opposite ways of make news. The international trend are closed or news with ads, and Wikinews seeks report open information with no ads and become a free news source. Therefore, the approach to keep the news free of charge and free to visitors is an approach that must be analyzed and exploited as a way to position the project within the media and invite editors to collaborate on Wikinews, which may acquire greater relevance as the media begin to adopt strategies to close their sites to the free consultation. This background of these measures date back to the AFP and AFE claims against Google for copying its contents to the index that handles a search engine. Finally, the gradual closure of several newspapers to become digital formats in order to reduce cost and terms of any line of business. Within this opportunity, Wikinews has other benefits by the volunteer work of amateurs and students of media in Latin America or every part of the world that can find a space for exercise and expression, regulated by administrators who watch closely the pillars of the project. The main idea this is the key idea, the benefits of making Wikinews, the values of Wikinews. So we analyze in the Spanish edition of Wikinews a very trend in between Wikimedia and Wikinews in Spanish. This is the idea. We have news articles on Wikipedia or encyclopedic news on Wikinews. This is well, following the guidelines of both projects, the news should go on Wikinews, and Wikipedia articles significantly further enriched by positive flexibility allows the fifth pillar, creating non-standard articles after traditional encyclopedia, enriched by hundreds of collaborators currently available to us. The reality puts as Wikipedia and its many collaborators in the first line of action to report news events, with margins of asymmetrical update to Wikinews. As a wiki reporter is building a draft of styles and verifiable data to make a story fit, on Wikipedia are adding only data immediately on a certain fact. An example of this situation is the recent death of Amy Winehouse. Spread the news of the death of Amy Winehouse between 11:12 a.m. and 6:15 p.m. There were a dozen of Wikipedians who edited the article by adding only data of Amy Winehouse, while the Wikinews reporters are updating a draft article, adding verifiable data from scratch every time the information was flowing. These cases and many more are reflected in the template for the cover of Wikipedia in the news. English Wikipedia have a section in the news which is currently, at least in Spanish, not clearly show a link to Wikinews, the source of the news. In theory, Wikipedia is built of facts and unanimously accepted. His vocation of being a secondary source of information will not accept, in theory, last-minute information. Wikinews have a policy for last-minute information not verified. The immediacy and the urgency to disseminate the information and the less support from the editors of the Wikipedia in Spanish to assist their projects affects significantly on the general growth of the Wikinews project. Jimmy says in the inauguration that situation. But why are few editors who want to be wiki reporters? Well, we search some reasons for collaborators of Wikipedia don't want to collaborate in the project. Well, the editing processes is different from Wikinews than Wikipedia, despite sharing a common base. Currently, of the 10 active editors on the Spanish Wikinews, only one has Wikinews development first and then Wikipedia. All the collaborators actually in Wikinews, we are Wikipedian and then we are wiki reporters. The Wikinews project must have an interesting editorial since the head note. We need to make interesting the content since we write the head note. And then we need to write with a series of style and editorial requirements to be done. And in Wikinews, in the absence of regular and constant collaborators, we are working from scratch. Always we working from scratch in creating news, not in built articles as in Wikipedia. You can collaborate in Wikipedia searching errors, or you can patrol vandalism, and in Wikinews you always write from scratch. You can collaborate watching articles or other tasks, specialized tasks like in Wikipedia. The learning curve, coupled with these flagged revisions that rule the project, discourage the participation of new Wikimedians. What is the difference in the form edit? The next, please. Next? Yes. No?
No. This is.
Okay. What is the difference in the form of Wikipedia edits? Well, in Wikinews, the edition is without references. Here are called sources, and come from a select group of sources, like agencies, original reporting, and so on. The type of writing is another difference. Conventions in writing of encyclopedia article tends to adopt the description and infunction of our style editor, or conventions agreed upon the creators of certain types of articles. In a news story, the writing itself influences the hierarchy of information and attends conventions and neutrality interest purposes. Wikinews, the Wikinews preferred model from right is the called in journalism the inverted pyramid. We have in Wikinews templates another mechanism who determine the publication of an article, and policies are available to control the information published. Well, Wiki reporter versus Wikipedist. The Wikipedist is speaking of an event based on sources of third persons, not primary source. The wiki reporter can write a story from news sources, either in person or by the cycle of information. Well, a Wikipedist can be a wiki reporter, but not vice versa. The wiki reporter should go to the nearest source of information, and the Wikipedist no. The Wikipedist can visit a third person place who obtain the verifiability for his article. Sources of information. Wikipedia is based on scientific information as a basis for the edition, and references are always mandatory, except in the Spanish Wikipedia. Wikinews relies on international agencies, original reporting, and mashup of the data sources. And Wikipedia does not allow the original papers. Wikinews promotes serious original reporting only to registered users with reliable sources for publication. Well, I can make an original report in Wikinews, go to interview the sources of information. I can report a situation who the wiki reporter are present. The Wikipedist always read all the sources in books, in magazines, or something like that. Well, what is our proposals? The first, find a positive synergy between the projects, as now seems to absorb Wikinews. Wikipedia absorbs Wikinews for the reasons set out above. Well, we have currently a dozen of Wikipedians writing news articles on Wikipedia. And in Wikinews, we are few editors. We can fight against the dozens of editors who invades our mission or the focus of our project. We propose highlight the presence in the editions of Wikipedia, in all the editions of Wikipedia, a sister project that is focused entirely circumstantial information. This is in the spaces in the news, or in Spanish are called actualidad. In all the main pages of Wikipedia, there's a space for actuality facts. We propose put always a link to more news on Wikinews, the project who have the news. We propose talk to internal Wikinews community for the possibility of fewer restrictions in Wikipedia, or to the Wikipedia editors, experienced users who can collaborate in Wikinews, and the fourth is find alternative sources of voluntary cooperation and hyperlocal via Wikipedia ambassadors type agreements, helped by Wikimedia chapters who can recruit new collaborators in journalism schools or encourage citizens to report to hyperlocal news in his communities. Well, thank you. This is my idea. Questions? Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
Actually, anybody puts the news from the textual evidence in this town, city, and whatsoever, can it be a primary source of the news?
Well, if he can, he have the source, it doesn't matter. Yes, if the user is registered. Registered, yes. Or, yes?
I know that I edit Wikipedia, Wikistores, and Wikiflows, and I started an account on News, this is years ago, and I wanted to edit it too. I did, I really did. But I just never got into it, and I was trying, but I saw some discussions about it. And I know in the English language, there was talk about, press passes and things that would make it easier for people
Well, it's hard, but Wikinews is not in our countries is not a newspaper that can allow a person who be the press. We arrange some ways to enter to the events, but currently in all the Wikinews editions we don't have any guarantee given by the Wikimedia Foundation or Wikimedia chapters to make our work.
Would that be a help, do you think? I mean, how big of a help would that be? Like, I'm thinking of like a major event like the Olympics or, you know, a big sporting event or you know, something that's pre-planned.
Yes.
I mean, what they you can plan to go to. I mean, there's other things too, you know, other events too.
So on English Wikinews, there's a guy who does it, called Brian Neer, and he basically sends an email every year or you've been requested on something a bit like, you know, requested connections on Wikipedia. But it's not an official endorsement. All it does is that if you're doing a story with original research, you have to have some track record, so that just like some crazy person doesn't turn up and just start putting in original research. Like you publish 5 or 10 articles, then you kind of say, well, I'm going to become accredited. But it's not the press pass, you're not endorsed by Wikinews, it's just you're slightly more trusted. But that's something that works in English, I don't know how it works in Netherlands.
So do people get access that way to show up at things like that?
They have done, yes.
Like, well, I'm thinking like big cities like, you know, we lived in New York City, well, really it was anywhere, you know, when there was something going on and you wanted to go and be part of the press corps, you know, I know that they won't let you in certain areas unless you have press passes. Does that help you get in those areas?
It does a little bit. I haven't got it, but I know people who have, and the primary point of it is that you turn up and it's just that they've confirmed that you are who you say you are. They might still go, Wikinews, what a load of crap, you know.
Yes.
But it confirms that you are who you say you are.
Yes, we don't have any guarantee to enter to press conferences or events or something like that.
Accreditation policy.
We are voting, or we want an accreditation policy for this, but we don't have any resources for make the work in the street. And this is all the other substantial difference. Wikipedist only can be make his work in his house, no? On a library or something like that. We, like a wiki reporter, we go to the streets with any guarantee to report to a free source, news source. Well, thank you for your attention.
I will probably start with the Wikiversity, as the other guy for Wikinews is still not in here. My name is Jan Lochman. I am coming from the Czech Republic. From the beginning, I should say I'm not the professional educator, but I like the concept of Wikiversity, and I've been involving since nearly the beginning. If you guys are online, you can also see this presentation via the English Wikiversity. That's the name of the page up there. And you can welcome to deploy your comments in its discussion page and talk about it right there. So I was... So something in general about the Wikiversity, it's the sister project of the Wikipedia. It is based on the same principles, like the same software, same license, same settings, and similar settings in general. Just to know if after the studies students are not receiving here still the certificates. We were thinking about it, but it's not. It was not realized, and it's not peer-reviewed because it's focusing also the research. So It's important to state it's not peer-reviewed, but otherwise there are many scholars and researchers from the different schools all around the world, from the different universities, who are organizing their education or their research within the Wikiversity. If we'll have a look on the project scope, there were like two general scopes at the creation back to 2006. One was like to host the open educational resources and create them in there and distribute them under the free licenses in all possible languages, while the other one was to host the research and learning communities. So I would say like from 50% it was the content-focused project, and from 50% people-focused project. This presentation, I will show you in this presentation, it might sound for somebody controversial, but those are just my thoughts about this project. I will show you the content, actual content on the Wikiversity, which was created since 2006 when it's existing. I had a possibility to look on the English version, Czech version, Portuguese, Spanish, Italian, and Russian version, and collect some data and saw the content which is already situated there. But as you can see, during the last 5 years, Wikiversity had also a lot of conflicts which were surrounding, especially its content. People were usually stating, when looking in some pages, that Wikiversity is a copy of Wikipedia, that Wikiversity copies the Wikibooks, and general thoughts were that it's a very messy or chaotic project. So some people were proposing the deletion of the Wikiversity, or it's included to Wikibooks from where it was born, or included with, merged is, with other projects. So if we have a look what's in Wikiversity, of course, most of the people would be looking there for the courses, which is kind of the structured matter. You could be from the easiest to the most difficult, represented by texts, slideshows, videos, even some recordings connected with other informations and a feedback for the students. For example, as an example, I have got this course, which was back in 2008, created by some Finnish scholars on the English Wikiversity, and which was called Composing Free and Open Online Educational Resources. It was aiming to teach the scholars, teach the teachers and future teachers where to find the open educational resources, how to create them, and where to deploy them on the internet. It was very successful, as you can see down here from the conclusion, 70 participants started on the beginning, and 15 participants have passed it and were marked like the participants who passed it. And nowadays, this year, there might be the second round of this course, which was running for about 3 months. If you will see here somewhere, Timo Leinonen from Finland, he is responsible for this course on the English Wikiversity. On the end, in fact, the community have discovered that it, in fact, was a research of the people from that University of the Arts and Design in Helsinki about how the Wikiversity could be used for the education and for learning. And their results could be found out on that link in that journal, First Monday. So courses are one type which most of us would be looking for on the Wikiversity. This is another example of the basic filming for the children. As it's also the research project, people would be looking there also for some research projects. I am retrieving this one, which is called the Bloom Clock project. It's one of the oldest projects to the English Wikiversity, which was also deployed on the Czech version. And it is aiming to look for the plants which are flowering in the region you are living in, write them down, And then when there is an enough database of herbaria of the plants which were flowering in your region, you can make a statistics. It is useful especially for the gardeners to make the statistics, but it can also be used in the different sciences surrounding the plants. As you can see down there, nowadays there are about 834 plants, and there are the participants from all around the world, about 20 participants who are contributing to this project. Maybe we can have a look how it looks. It's like a simple page on the Wikiversity where the contributors list themselves to the list, indicate from where they come from, and then they use the master list to find out the plant they saw somewhere flowering. It's listed under the scientific name, so they should use Wikipedia if they don't know the name of the plant. And they enter to the log page, which is in fact the herbaria item. And somewhere there, where there are the recent logs, which is in here, they can deploy their signature, which means they have seen this plant flowering. And then down there are some regional data, which are the keys of the flowering plants for the different region, for the different period of the year. So this is one example of the research project. If the participants doesn't know the plant, they can upload the picture of the plant. They took a picture, and someone, the botanist, helps them to set what plant is that. There are, of course, not only the group research projects, there are also the personal research projects. This comes from the Czech Wikiversity. It's the project researching the washing machine. Because if you have at home the washing machine and it get broken, you can call someone who is going to repair that, or you can read the manual, or you can research it. Put the hypothesis, it's broken, for example, in here, change it, and you'll see if you have proven your hypothesis or not. So these kinds of, maybe for some people, funny projects or silly projects could be also found out on Wikiversity. So already some of the Czech Wikipedians has commented this project that it's a paling and no one cares of the author's problems, of course. And what are you supposed to learn from that? Then the third, there is another one, and the third main focus, which probably most of the people would be looking for on the Wikiversity, is the way of the hosting of the communities. Here I can show you this example. It's in fact the private company from Prague, from the Czech Republic, called Citronix Telecommunication Solution, who are organizing within the Wikiversity a course of the technical writing, while their students at the same time were attending some real-time courses in the halls of this company. It was deployed on the Wikiversity because these people thought that Wikiversity might help them to improve the course and might help them to finish the course. But in conclusion, I would say that that effect of improving and completing the course haven't came because the number of the participants, even on the English Wikiversity, is not so high. It's really much smaller than, for example, Wikipedia. It could be around, for your imagination, around 10, 15, 20 very active contributors on the English Wikiversity. I mean from the core community, because then there are students who are attending, who are around the pages like these for the different schools and educational communities, and that the number could be in hundreds. So it was one of the example of the hosting communities. We might think about if the normal Wikiversity user or the person who would like to attend this course and who would not be a member of that community would attend that course. But I would say this one probably yes. The other example is the group of Professor Lochman from the University of Florida, who is using Wikiversity since 2008. Who is deploying on Wikiversity the assignments for the students, and the students then write their homeworks or scan their homeworks and upload their homeworks to the Wikiversity. This course, in fact, it's completely messy, because for those who know something about the Wiki projects, this group is using the namespace for the users. For every course there is founded new user, and for every reply, for every homework, students are also founding new users, and they're deploying their assignments and their homeworks to the pages of these users. So it's very messy, it's very chaotic, it's not categorized, but they're probably happy because they're using the Wikiversity from 2008. But for other users, it's a complete mess and it's not useful. And well, these were like the three examples of the three major objects which probably the majority of the people would be looking for on the Wikiversity. But that I should say that these types of courses and hosted communities projects are probably only about 20, maybe 70% of all content of Wikiversity. Another 70% or 80% of the content of the Wikiversity is kind of unidentified mess, as it was indicated by many people, which I have sorted, and on the English Wikiversity they are trying to sort it also, to show that in fact it is not a mess which is copying Wikibooks, which is copying the Wikipedia and so on. Most of the pages are probably kind of manuals, notes of the students, notes of the teachers, notes of the scholars, and there could be also the original research. Especially this kind of content looks usually very similar as the articles on Wikipedia, or might look very similar as could be something which could be deployed on Wikibooks. Wikibooks is a project which is dedicated to the creation of the open educational textbooks. So, but if you don't see how it's linked with other pages, you can say it shouldn't be there. So, for example, I can show you this page. That might be also probably a page deployed on the Wikibooks, and if there were more pages like that, it could be situated, I would say, on the Wikibooks as the educational text. Or let's have a look on the Spanish Wikiversity. It's for the first view, it's a plain text which can go to the Wikipedia, I would say, if you don't learn further, if there's something educational, but as or, for example, this one, which looks like on the Russian Wikiversity, which looks like a duplicate of Wikipedia. It's an article, there are some sections, and it's situated on the Wikiversity. But as I'm saying, if you are not proofreading these texts, and if you're not looking from where they are linked, they're usually these kind of pages, the original research, those can be the homeworks of the teachers, and of course, as the education, as the communities are hosted within the Wikiversity, then these communities, these students are deploying, of course, their texts to this project of Wikiversity. In general, I would say the Wikiversity users would not mind to later on export some of these pages to Wikipedia or to those Wikibooks which were mentioned. Another very important type of the pages are the school structure. Here I would like to stop a little bit, because That's how we can divide it in general, the Wikiversities, into two big groups. Because if you go to the English Wikipedia, if you'll go to the Hebrew Wikipedia, if you'll go to the Spanish Wikipedia, the concept is the same. It's the encyclopedic inquiry. It's an article. And it looks everywhere the same, how it's connected by the links. But if you'll browse the different language Wikiversities, they're not the same. And I would say there were established two approaches of the Wikiversity users how to fulfill this aim to be the open educational e-learning portal. Many Wikiversities, especially the Russian, Spanish, and Portuguese, have designed the Wikiversity like this picture, to create a different structure. Elementary schools, high schools, and then different universities with their faculties, departments, and so on. Recently, I have followed the interesting discussion on the Portuguese Wikiversity where people were recommending, in fact, some of them were having an idea not to create on the Wikiversity the educational content, but create a structure like this, leave it empty, and wait for the scholars who will fill these pages. So there will be, for example, the page of the Department of English Language, and they will be waiting for the people, and then probably the people will create some educational content. Also, the discussion on the Russian Wikiversity was interesting, because one of the users was recommending to kind of hidden the inactive communities, the inactive departments which are situated in there. So this is one approach, how the Wikiversities are doing that. I can show you some pages. For example, this is from the Russian Wikiversity. That's the Faculty of Biology. You can see there the different departments, how it's structured, and this structure goes forever. And if you get on the end, there is usually nothing, which is the example here of the Portuguese Wikiversity, where you go from the institute, that's might be probably the Faculty of Arts, then for the bachelor's degree of Portuguese, and on the end nothing. So I have linked that fastly, and well, the link is broken, but it had to be there somewhere. It's usually, or on the Spanish Wikiversity, maybe some of you understand that there's a category and there are different departments. So it's kind of this structure. I will go back. The other approach, which is in fact those types of pages, is the approach not to create, not to copy the brick and mortar schools within the Wikiversity, even not to copy the structures of Wikipedia, and directly create the educational materials and gather the scholars and researchers and students around these materials. So that was in fact the case of that bloom clock project about the flowering plants, but it's also the case of many other content projects. Here I am showing in fact the content of all Wikiversities, so it's mixed mostly, but we would say that the Wikiversities which are copying the brick and mortar schools usually have less content than those like Czech or English Wikiversity or German Wikiversity, which is like 50-50%, but those are more like creating the content and getting the people around this content. Then there could be deploy the lectures, which is, for example, the example of this page, which is in fact which was written on the Wikiversity, and it is available in the reading form and in this form for the lectures, for the presentation, where the scholar can highlight some sections. But this, of course, needs some knowledge of the cascading style sheets to be able to design that. Then, of course, as we are hosting the communities, you can find out on the Wikiversity different chats and discussion forums, but especially the chats and discussion forums about the different topics of of what the people are studying and researching. But with this, there were technical difficulties, because if we exclude the extension liquid treats, there were no suitable extension to run these discussions. That's why the discussions were run on the special normal Wikiversity pages. There could be find out also the different quizzes, as there is another extension, another edit software to Wikiversity, which offers to create some quizzes, but unfortunately, the quizzes still can't be used to test the students, because if the student will press a submit button, it shows him directly the results of the test. So there would, the Wikiversity needs some tool where just the teacher, for example, can see the result, correct it, and then send the feedback to the student. And those were like the journal pages, I mean type of the content pages which could be found out on the Wikiversity. On the end I have placed some other pages, like from the English Wikiversity, where from very early people were developing the Wiki Campus radio with the scope to study all the activities which are needed to develop such a radio, and then use it to broadcast the news from the Wikinews, to broadcast the kind of educational content, but even the music. But as you can see, the actual state is that the project is still ongoing, which is in general the problem of most of the projects within the Wikiversity, that they take very slow, and many of them are left unfinished. Maybe I forget to tell, it's important to know that Wikiversity is not a university. It's more than the university. There are also different projects, and you can deploy the assignments and educational resources even for children, for older people. The long life studying could be organized that. So here, for example, is situated on the English Wikiversity, but also still not finished this course to the solar system, which is interactive with the audio. You can click simply on the sky, fly away from the Earth, then continue to the solar system. And the aim is to study something about the solar system, give it by a very easy way to the children. And when they want to leave the solar system, they're supposed to be about 5 questions about the solar system. If they are right, they can go to the deeper space. If they're not right, they're being brought back to this page of the solar system. Okay, excuse me. So as you can see, there is something on the Wikiversity. The problem is that most of the projects are unfinished, but most of the problems are, it is very messy and untidy. So I'm proposing what could be next is especially to tidy up the content, to categorize it by the pages, especially by the type of the content, and develop the tool how to encourage the people on the beginning when they are founding a new page to set what type of content is that, which might help a lot. And then of course one of the ways might be to move these different type contents to the different namespaces within the Wikiversity and design them somehow for the needs of these content type pages. Like the lectures could have one namespace where this kind of skin or another types of the skins which the teachers might find useful may choose. And also the problem is sometimes that the newcomers think that they will discover on the Wikiversity just the content because it looks like a Wikipedia. Here the hypothesis is to change totally the skin of the Wikiversity, and get easier editing might be to deploy some editor where you will no need to know the wiki code, the wiki syntax. But as I heard on the introduction to this conference, the Wikimedia Foundation is planning something for us, so it might be the easier work. And then on the end, of course, to make the evaluation. Also, there were some broken spinning conflicts within the Wikiversity. Here, this second part is more like focusing, I would say, that fact that most of the users who are coming to Wikiversity, they think it's an open project. Because all the projects of the Wikimedia Foundation are open, even the Wikipedia, but most of them are open to editing. So Wikiversity is open also to the editing, while I think that how it's people-focused, it's also open to thinking. And this open thinking, in fact, during the past years, especially to the English Wikiversity, brought several problems. The first big problem goes back to 2008, when one of the users of the English Wikiversity, of the English Wikipedia, was blocked on the English Wikipedia for trolling for the time of indefinite, and he moved to Wikiversity to kind of research why he was blocked on Wikipedia. And, but he was also accusing the people, such as the Jimmy Wales. It resulted in the war within the Wikiversity, after which some of the people were blocked, some of the administrators were de-administrated, and about 10 very active users have left the project, 7 of them who were the administrators. Something similar, which was also the conflict, or which was connected with English Wikipedia, happened in 2010. On English Wikipedia, there was deleted that page called Ethical Breaching Experiments, which was in fact kind of the guidelines how to use the open proxies to harm Wikipedia, in fact, and how not to be detected by the administrators. So it was deleted, and someone moved that pages to the Wikiversity and said, let's research that we can give the chance to our developers how to protect better Wikipedia. But this caused a big conflict, and also these pages, the people from Wikipedia came to the Wikiversity. They were very angry. I understand that, because the Wikipedia, is 100% content focused, so they have to protect their editors. They came to the Wikiversity, they have frozen the conflict, and on the result, these ethical breaching experiments were deleted also from the Wikiversity, but it resulted also on the exodus of the Wikiversity users from the project. I would say these two big conflicts, which kind of nearly paralyzed the English Wikiversity, because most of the core users, those are the users who are there every day and who were at the foundation of this project and of this concept, have left the project. And in both of these cases, the people were leaving because they thought it's the project where you can deploy, you can think, and you can be open in thinking. So there was also on the end the petition to shut down the Wikiversity, and there were the different other ideas how to limit the Wikiversity. So even the people from the German Wikiversity or French Wikiversity, which are going very well, but who were not involved in these conflicts, were kind of scared of this. So this is quite a, I would say, bigger problem than the messy content which the project of Wikiversity is having. And that might be the question, how to deal with that. I should say that I don't know, in fact, but it seems to me that the best way would be, if we don't want to limit that openness of thinking in Wikiversity, it might be probably the best way to move this project outside of the portfolio with the Wikimedia Foundation projects, because most of the projects within this portfolio are not so much or not at all people focused, and they have their own internal rules which protects the idea, which protects the way how the encyclopedia on the Wikipedia is being created. So that's my my way how I think it could work. But you are welcomed. Here is the long white, blue paper prepared for you, and deploy your ideas how this problem of the Wikiversity can be solved. So we may kind of find out some collaboratively some way how to figure out that. So that's all. If there are any questions on the end.
Okay, so what I was saying is that, in my opinion, there must be some policy which limits the scope of possible research, let's say that way, on the Wikiversity. Because otherwise, you can have, research about how to make, some terrorist act or some weapon or some things which are clearly illegal or dangerous to the society. So I think that. Well, this kind of controversial research projects will always happen unless you define some clear policies. I think this is necessary.
Well, in fact, regarding to this problem, they are, in English Wikiversity, there are some policies, there are some even ethical lists, but probably they were not written so good, or they were not sufficient. For example, that problem from 2008 from that user was very long. It lasts till this year. So it took a very long time. Recently, one of the users who, in fact, in 2000 came from Wikipedia and settled down in the Wikiversity, have noted that the Wikiversity users have think about it if they would like to be the place for education and hosting the educational communities, or if the Wikiversity would like to be a mental hospital to heal the people, in fact, because all of the discussions around this user who came from the Wikipedia looked, in fact, sometimes that some of the users of the Wikiversity would like to educate him, but would like to heal him from that problem, would like to explain him what was wrong and what is not possible. But thank you for your comment.
Given the problems, one, when there would be the oversight of the founder sort of work against consensus with Wales, that saga, one possible solution is always in the open source community or open content is to fork. Do you think that there's Wikiversity still isn't that mature? Do you think it would be difficult to fork right now, or do you think is it too stable, or what do you think about that?
To fork, there were some attempts to fork the Wikiversity. Since 2008, how people became angry, they were leaving the Wikiversity and they were creating different projects. The last one was called somehow Net Knowledge. But the problem was that also this guy left with them to that project. And nowadays, I was looking recently, during the last about 3, 4, 5 months, only this user was editing in there. So I also wanted to move in there, but I was saying why they allow this user to harsh there. And they said, well, we are open. So, but I think it might be, that's what I in fact propose, some forking, going outside from the Wikimedia portfolio, not to put the stick into the bee's nest, in fact, which might help to the project. Well, I think it would help also the things, the peer-reviewed. In fact, the Wikiversity community get about 6 months from the Wikimedia Foundation on the beginning to develop some policies and to develop the way of the peer reviewing, some policies around the peer review, how to organize the peer review, how it will work. But there were some discussions on the project which is called Beta Wikiversity, which was created especially for this aim, outside of Meta, and it wasn't concluded yet. I would say that probably the Wikiversity more like still, on the beginning there were 2 aims, but no one knew on the beginning how the project in fact will look like. Everybody had some idea how the project could look like. So it seems to me that this project is kind of the experimental projects, in fact, because there are no common policy within the Wikiversities, and as I said, every language version looks quite different. But yes, the peer reviewing processes might help also.
Well, I have an answer and a question.
Come in here and take the microphone.
So I have an answer and a question. So an answer is for the questions that were discussed. So we can all learn. I mean, Wikiversity is some kind of a reapplication of some ideas that have been existing for a while in the academic community to the wiki community, to the wiki approach to things. So we can all learn from the way things are done in academic community. And that's you have an idea of what you want to research, then you write a proposal. Usually the main goal for that is to get money for your students, and for your employees. But it doesn't need to be about money. It can be you write a really good proposal. If you cannot even formulate a couple of paragraphs of text, then obviously you shouldn't be researching that. You're not ready yet. If you can formulate it, but it's formulated in a sense like, I want to get back to Jimmy Wales for blocking me, then I'm sorry, go research it somewhere else on your private page. You can install MediaWiki there and have your own website. Or maybe you should allow that, I don't know, what's the goal. But there can be just a proposal and approval process, and after that you get your own, I don't know, namespace, portal, whatever, and then you can start researching, or whatever. So that's the answer. And the question is, so that was also one of my main reasons for not doing anything with Wikiversity apart from making an account there, and also my biggest reason for coming to this talk. The universities in different countries have different balance between 2 things that they are trying to achieve, namely research and education. So in some countries, universities are mostly for giving education, providing education to students, giving lectures, labs, running practice, anything. And then, yeah, if you do some research, it's very good. And in some other countries, especially in Europe, it's you have to be a paper monkey. You have to write a lot of scientific papers, and the more papers you write, the better you are. And if you teach students, yes, it's actually very good to teach some students, and actually some people just consider it like a burden, like, okay, I have to give a lecture, okay, on Mondays I give lectures, the other days of the week I write as much papers as possible, because if I'm not a professor and I don't write a particular amount of papers a year, I don't get a professor anyway. So what's the... I was browsing through the Russian Wikiversity, and it looks like it's almost about giving education. Most of the stuff is done by people of kind of student level. I think the margin is like bachelor or something, but they are mostly on bachelor or master level, and they are creating courses on whatever they find interesting, and they're trying to teach other people. But you keep on saying research, research. So what is the balance of the Wikiversity with respect to research and education? What is it, and what do you want it to be?
Well, I don't mind personally, and depends what the Wikiversity community.
Someone should mind. This is a starting project, and someone should step up and say, we do it this way.
Well, I think it depends on the communities which are coming there. I haven't been browsing so much the Russian Wikiversity, if they're more like focusing the research or trying to educate. But maybe it might be the idea also to focus on just one segment of the education. Let's, for example, have this project just for the creation for the courses, for the educational courses, and just focus on the education. There will be the open educational courses. Or say, let's use this project just for deploying open educational resources. But here we are maybe kind of collapsing with Wikibooks and Wikipedia. Or use it just for lectures like this.
Research is original research, and Wikipedia doesn't allow that.
Well, there was also the idea to get the people who like to make the original research on Wikipedia, get them to Wikiversity. Is that...